unbeatable. Walking down this endless highway, with nothing but my friends beside me. We'll never give in, we'll never rest. Advanced battle is the ultimate test. From the earth, the land, the sea and sky, they can never win, but they sure can try. Oh, I'm unbeatable, Pokemon.
Hey guys, welcome to my full series review for Assassination Classroom. Now, chances are you've heard of this series. It has been quite popular recently. The manga recently finished up. You have the second season of the anime airing, and a new live-action movie just came out for it. Now, if you follow the channel, this has been a series I've been collecting for a very long time, but I didn't really sink my teeth into it until I found that the series was going to end at 20 volumes. So when the series ended a couple weeks ago, I finally started to read it, and now I'm done, and I'm here to bring you guys my thoughts on it. And because the series has been getting a lot of hype recently, I am here to answer the question if whether or not it lives up to said hype. So Assassination Classroom is a manga series created by Yusei Matsui, and it was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump from 2012 to 2016. So Assassination Classroom is a weird one. I know I just reviewed like Scott Pilgrim and Soul Eater, which are really out there, but this one is pretty crazy. Like, if you don't know the plot for Assassination Classroom, before I give you the summary, I'll just let you know that no, you aren't actually drugged. This is the actual plot summary. So one day, a huge chunk gets blown out of the moon. Yeah, that's how the story starts. Then this yellow octopus thing shows up and says that he did it. And then he says he's going to do the exact same thing to the Earth in a year's time. Then he shows up to the classroom of a bunch of grade 9 students saying that he is going to be their teacher for the next year. Then this dude Karasuma from the Ministry of Defense shows up and says that, listen, you guys are going to have to kill this dude before he destroys the world in a year. The only problem is that this yellow octopus monster can move at Mach 20. So, yeah, that's the premise of this story. These students have to kill their teacher, who is an octopus monster. And yeah, there's a bit more to it though. This particular class of students are known as the end class. They are pretty much the delinquents, all the kids whose academic performance isn't high enough for the regular school, so they attend school in this isolated classroom far away from the rest of the students. And they are there to set an example for the other students that, hey, you better not screw up or you'll end up in the end class. And now this octopus monster claiming he will destroy the world will be their teacher. Things aren't very clear though. For one, this octopus monster seems oddly nice for someone who plans on destroying the world. And it seems like he really wants to teach these students for some weird reason. So the Ministry of Defense provides all of these students with weapons that can only harm this monster, and the students decide he needs a name, so they dub him Koro-sensei. And then the crazy adventure of Assassination Classroom begins, with these guys constantly trying to kill Koro-sensei. Because if they don't, some crap is going to happen. Alright. So, I don't even know where to begin with this one because the story is so crazy. But first off, I love the mystery behind Koro-sensei. You have no idea where this guy comes from at first. You have no idea what his motivations are. Why is he so nice? Why does he want to destroy the world? What is going on? And honestly, you will be asking yourself that question for a while. I also really have to commend this story for being so original. One of the things I love about manga is that people have such crazy ideas, and pretty much anything can become serialized. The idea for this plot is so outrageous and crazy, and it somehow works. Well, it mostly works. You see, this series follows a formula for the first bit. A lot of the story focuses on the students trying to kill Koro-sensei and it failing. We also get a lot of mini arcs focusing on the many characters, which I will talk about in a minute. And then there are some arcs where other assassins come in trying to kill Koro-sensei, because one thing I left out is that the reward for killing this monster is 10 billion yen. The students also have to deal with normal school things, you know, bullies from the bigger school building, all the people who are looking down at Class E thinking they're losers. They have to go through exams and, you know, all that other stuff that happens at Japanese schools. You know, if you've read, like, any manga that takes place at a Japanese school, a lot of this is going to seem familiar to you. Now, I really love the setup of the series. You know, the first couple of volumes we got were excellent. We got introduced to a bunch of awesome characters. And we got to see all of Koro-sensei's really cool powers. We get to see what kind of person he is, and I friggin' love Koro-sensei. And we even learned that there may be more to him than is led on. The problem is, though, the formula kinda starts to drag on a bit. Like I said, we get a lot of mini arcs focusing on certain characters, and honestly, these weren't the most interesting chapters in the world, and whenever I got to them, I was kind of like, yeah, can we please move it along? I did really enjoy all the chapters where new assassins would come in. Those were always cool. And honestly, a lot of these series were a mix of smaller arcs that I didn't care about, and then slightly larger ones that I really liked. But once you get to Volume 15, Volume 15 onward to the end of the series is greatness. Like, I just binge read the crap out of this final quarter. It was really, really crazy. And oh my god, the ending. No spoilers. No spoilers. You can look for my spoiler video I mentioned. But the ending was fantastic. The final scene in this series is just excellent. So before I talk about what I feel like is the biggest problem with this series, I will be going through the main characters. First up, we have Koro Sensei. I love Koro Sensei. Oh my god. He makes this series great. He really does. I mean, he's such a great character. He's lovable, he's funny, he's charming, even though he seemingly wants to destroy the world. He just made, like, every scene he was in, he always stole the show. I loved him so much. He is the reason this series is so popular, and it's just great. Now, two other characters I really loved were Karasuma and Irina. Now, these guys are trained assassins, and they have come to teach the end class along with Koro Sensei, mainly to, you know, make sure Koro Sensei keeps his word of not harming the children, and, you know, maybe they'll have the chance to kill him as well. All these three teacher characters were wonderful. I love them so much. I thought they had great development, and they made all the scenes they were in a whole lot of fun. Next up, we have the students. This is a full class of students, like over 20 kids. Here's where the biggest flaw with this series comes up. And it's a pretty big flaw, to be honest. There are way too many characters. Every single student is a character. Like, none of them are just background. Like, none of them are just background super-minded characters. Every single one of them gets introduced as a character in this series. The thing is, though, the series is only 20 volumes long. And not only are all of these students characters, but they keep introducing more characters, new assassins, all these other side characters coming out of nowhere. It just becomes cluttered with all these characters, and because the series is so short, we barely get any development for them. I should talk about the main students it focuses on, though, and our true protagonist of the series is Nagisa. And Nagisa is the student who gets the most time spent on him. I really don't want to say what makes him so important because, you know, spoilers. And while by the end of the series, I do feel like he becomes a very good character and gets very well developed. Problem is there are so many other characters. You know, like I said, how there are small mini arcs focusing on certain students who we really never hear from again. The series spends so much time on these random characters that whose names you won't remember, instead of developing its main characters. Another really interesting student is Karma, who the series does spend a lot of time on, but he really doesn't see that much development. We also have Kayano, and if you're reading the series and wondering, like, why the crap is Kayano, like, here all the time? She literally does nothing. There is a reason for it. Again, spoilers. And I do feel like she becomes a good character by the end, but once again, we don't get enough development early on because it's focusing on all these other characters, and a lot of the main students don't really get developed until the last part of the series, which is why I think is the best part of the series. But I really think the series shouldn't have focused on all of these minor characters, these supporting roles, and it really should have focused more on the main characters. And then there are characters who I feel like are way more interesting than others that barely got any time spent on them. A new character introduced about a quarter of the way through the series is Itona. Now, when this guy got introduced, I thought he was a super cool character, and he was really interesting. I wanted to find out more about him. When we finally do find out more about him, and this whole big arc happens about him, then it just kind of like stops. Like, he's there, but he really doesn't do anything, which really sucks because I thought he was such a good character, and then he's just doing nothing for the rest of the series. The thing that bugs me about this series, though, is that Koro Sensei and the teachers and Nagisa later on in the series become such good characters. It's just such a shame that the series focused on all these other characters, and I'm sure if the series was longer, I would have grown to like a lot of these characters, but because it is only 20 volumes, just no one really gets enough development. I just really feel like there are way too many characters in this series, and unfortunately it did take me out of the series a couple times. There were times I just needed to put it down, just like, there are so many characters, please just focus on the characters I care about. Which of course it eventually did, and like I said before, volume 15 plus is excellent. So next up is the art. Now, here's the thing, the art in this series isn't bad. It works. The thing is though, it's honestly kind of generic. Other than Koro-sensei, there is nothing in this series that really stands out to me as unique. The faces of the characters in particular aren't that detailed, and there are just a lot of other scenes that aren't very detailed. I don't really think the art not being fantastic takes away from the story at all, but I do think it is unfortunate that it could not have been a bit better. However, of course, art is subjective. You might think it's fantastic, I just think it's, average. So that about sums up my review for Assassination Classroom. I think it is a great premise with some great characters and a really, really cool story. The problem is though, there are too many characters, and I'll stand by my statement saying that is the weakest point of this series. Honestly, if they had not focused on all these minor characters and focused more on the main characters, this series would have been fantastic. But overall, despite the overabundance of characters, I do still think this series is very well worth checking out. And that is why I'm giving Assassination Classroom my score of 3.5 tentacles out of 5. So if this review intrigued you and you wanted to pick up Assassination Classroom for yourself, you can, because the series of course has been licensed by Viz Media, and they are currently releasing the series bi-monthly. 9 volumes are out so far, and you can expect them to continue to release it up to volume 20, which will be, of course, be the final one. Although it will be a while though, because this series just ended and volume 20 isn't even out yet in Japan. You can also check out the anime series. There are 2 seasons. The second season is currently ongoing, and I do assume that this series will end the same way the manga ended. I have checked out a bit of the anime, and from what I can tell, it's a pretty solid adaptation, and it's really good. And like most anime adaptations, the art is a lot better than the manga. There are also 2 live-action movies that I know nothing about, and I don't know why they felt the need to turn this into a live-action movie, but yeah, those are a thing. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. You can discuss this series in the comments below, and I'd love to hear all your thoughts about it. So I will see you guys in my next full series. Hold on, I'm getting a message. Oh, son of a bitch.